The goal of this video is to help corporate boards proactively eliminate red flags and streamline the due diligence process for a successful scale. After years of growth, the board has made a strategic decision that it's time to sell the company. Now, there's always drivers behind those reasons. Let's quickly go over some of the key ones, such as declining performance. If revenue, profitability, or market share is declining with no clear path to recovery, the board may decide that selling is the best option. They may want to maximize shareholder returns. If the company is at peak valuation and a sale can provide shareholders with the highest possible return. Debt and financial stress is another driver. If the company struggles with excessive debt or cash flow issues, selling can be a way to restructure or avoid insolvency. Maybe there's a change in the business focus. The company may no longer align with the parent company's strategic direction, leading to a divestiture. Shifting market dynamics. This is when disruptive technologies, regulatory changes, or evolving customer behavior can make a sale the best strategic move. Synergies with a buyer. Maybe some of you are here right now. A potential buyer may offer you a great strategic value, such as enhanced market reach, technology integration, or cost efficiencies. An attractive buyout offer. A compelling acquisition proposal from a competitor, private equity firm, or a strategic buyer can make selling really favorable. Industry consolidation. In highly competitive markets, mergers can be a survival strategy to maintain market leadership. Founder or executive exits. This one is likely pretty familiar to most of you. If key leaders or major shareholders want to retire or move on, selling can ensure a smooth transition. Next here is a shift from private to public or the reverse may drive a sale, especially if market conditions or investor interests have changed. Antitrust or regulatory compliance. If legal risks or compliance costs are too high, a sale can be a way to mitigate some of those liabilities. Or lastly here, tax considerations. Changes in tax laws or incentives that may make selling more financially beneficial than continuing operation. But here's the challenge. Buyers dissect operations, searching for inefficiencies, risks, and red flags. And that could lower your valuation or worse, derail the deal entirely. So, how do you ensure your corporation is M&A ready? In today's episode, we will cover what buyers scrutinize in corporate operations, how to build an M&A ready standard operating procedure framework, fixing operational weaknesses before due diligence, the role of data and documentation in securing buyer confidence, and the biggest mistakes corporate sellers make and how to avoid them. Let's get started. What buyers scrutinize the most in corporate operations. When evaluating a corporate acquisition, buyers are going to take a deep dive into your financials. You already know that. They want to ensure that the company they're acquiring is efficient, scalable, and not overly dependent on any single leader or department. So let's go over what these are. Okay. Process maturity. Are workflows standardized or are operations fragmented across departments? Scalability. Can existing operations support future growth or will extensive restructuring be needed? Technology and systems. Are the company's platforms modern and interoperable, or are they outdated and siloed? Regulatory compliance. Are there legal risks, pending investigations, or compliance gaps? And lastly, here, data governance. Can performance metrics be easily validated, or is reporting inconsistent? One of the biggest threats to a deal is operational reliance on key individuals rather than institutionalized processes. We've spoken about this before. If the business functions smoothly only because of a few executives, buyers will see that as a major risk. That's why having a structured, standard operating procedures or SOP framework is critical. This ensures business continuity post sale and reassures buyers that the company isn't dependent on internal knowledge silos. Here's what an M&A ready SOP framework should cover. Okay. Departmental roles and responsibilities. Clearly define functions across leadership, finance, operations, IT, and next here, you want technology workflows. Document how data moves between systems and platforms. Next, you'll want governance and compliance. Outline risk management policies, security measures, and regulatory adherence. And lastly here, contingency planning. Establish backup strategies for supply chain disruptions, leadership transitions, and cybersecurity risks. I think it's worth spending a few minutes laying out what this template should look like. I'll try to be as descriptive as possible, and you'll probably want to write this down. The first section should include the name of the SOP, the date it was finalized, and the version that you're on. The second section should include what departments this SOP is applicable to and who should be following it. The third section, this section is pretty important and can mirror the information that would be listed in your continuity planning. The roles and responsibilities listed here for all departments, along with their contact information, should mirror what's in the continuity plan. Okay, so it should be the exact information. An example here. So your finance department, who is in charge of financial reporting and oversight, list their name, their email, their phone number. Now, for a continuity plan, you would list that same person's name, email, and cell phone number, and the same goes for operations, compliance, IT, compliance. You may not think that this step is important, or you already have someone's contact information in your phone or you're in your contacts, but trust me when I tell you, you will want this information in this document all together and written out very, very clearly. When an emergency strikes, it is not the time to start gathering that information. Know who is in charge of what and who should be communicating what to whom. This is also a good exercise to make sure that you have everyone's contact information up to date and it's accurate. Okay, now the fourth section of this document, this section should include your technology workflows. And what I mean here is you'll want to document how data moves between your systems and your platforms to ensure seamless operations and data integrity. This can be written, it doesn't necessarily need to be drawn, and you'll need some help with your IT team and maybe the CIO. In the fifth section here, this section should detail your system overview and the data flow diagram. In other words, list the system name and like your ERP or your CRM, then what its function is, centralized financial data management or centralized customer files. Then in the next box, you should list who are the users, not individually, but by department. So your buyer knows who has access to what and a rough idea of how they are using those systems. And the last piece of information here you'll want is how the data flows to and from this tool. Example, does it sync with CRM or syncs with X reporting tool, and so on. Do that for all your business critical systems. Next, a data flow diagram is exactly what it sounds like, a flow chart of how data moves between those platforms. The sixth section here is your compliance standards, security measures, and your risk management. You'll include here things like regulatory bodies, SOX, GDPR, any reporting requirements, and their frequency, along with audit schedules. While most buyers will already know most of this, it will be a good exercise for you and your team to sort out and make sure that you're ready for the sale. When I say security measures, you'll want to include things like system, multi-factor authentication required for all systems, or role-based access controls or RBAC to limit data exposure, regular penetration testing and vulnerability assessments, risk management if you conduct quarterly risk assessments or if you maintain incident response plans or data breaches. Do you have a whistleblower protection for reporting and compliance violations, things like that? Contingency planning, or I usually refer to this as continuity planning, is exactly what it sounds like here. A backup plan for things like supply chain disruptions, leadership transitions, and cybersecurity risks. And the very last thing I think you should include is document and reporting. Where are all of these SOPs stored? How often are they reviewed? Who are they submitted to for oversight? Things like that. Okay, now I feel like that was a lot to go over, so I want to review quickly what this looks like, and I think it may help you better understand what I mean. Okay, as you can see here, sections 1 and 2, this is what we just went over. You'll put here the name of the SOP, the department it pertains to, and who should be following it, the date it was finalized, or the last date it was revised, who approved it, and if you have a number for your SOPs, you'll want to include that in this section as well. Section 3 at the bottom here, that's where you'll list your roles and responsibilities. Yes, they should all have the same information in this section. Every single SOP, department, roles, responsibilities of that department, and the key contact details, their name, their title, email, and phone number. This is where you'll either write out or you can draw. This is your technology workflow. This is how data flows throughout your technology stack. Next at the bottom there is your system overview. Here is where you'll write out what systems you have, what their functions are, and who the users are, and what the data flow is. This should match your technology workflow that's right above it. This exercise will also help everyone on your team understand if and where you have operational gaps. I always say give yourself time to do this exercise because they can and likely will turn into a bigger project. And it will be one you'll want to handle before entertaining the sale of your company. And lastly, here, this is the last section 6 and 7. 6, you'll list your compliance standards, the regulatory bodies, and security measures if you have, let's say, multi factor authentication, or if you regularly pen test, who does it, when, things like that. And that last section there, you can list any additional information such as risk assessments, incident responses, continuity plans, where to find that information. Remember, all of these documents are interconnected, so you'll want the same information to be consistent throughout all of your SOPs. This is just an SOP template. If the time comes when you need to activate a continuity plan, your team should know what happens to their process, where to find the alternative plan or directions, and who will be giving those directions. Okay, that was a lot to take in, but I think you'll be better prepared to take this on. Okay, next let's get into how to address operational weaknesses before due diligence. Once this decision has been made, the board must assess operational gaps before the buyers do. Identifying and addressing weaknesses upfront prevents last minute renegotiations and preserves valuation. Common weaknesses are overlapping or redundant processes, streamline operations to reduce inefficiencies. Outdated technology, upgrade those legacy systems or implement integrations to avoid transition risk. Weak internal controls, guys, strengthening compliance frameworks to avoid post sales liabilities. And the last thing I want to mention on this here is unclear succession planning. Ensure leadership continuity post transaction. The bottom line here is proactively resolving these issues before entertaining due diligence puts the corporation in a stronger negotiating position. Next, I want to cover why robust reporting increases buyer confidence. Buyers need clear, verifiable data to move forward with confidence. Disorganized records, inconsistent financials, or missing compliance documents raises red flags. Ensure your corporation's data is accurate, meaning any discrepancies between reporting versus actual performance will raise doubts. Consistent, standardized reporting formats and methodologies across all departments. Have all reports and information accessible, meaning have a centralized, secure digital repository for due diligence documents. A well structured data room significantly accelerates deal negotiations and reduces buyer skepticism. And let's close out this video with some common seller mistakes that lower valuation or kill deals. Even well established corporations, as we have gone over in previous videos, can make costly missteps in the M&A process. Here are the most common seller mistakes: reduced valuation, or worse, the collapse of a deal. The first here is lack of operational transparency. Buyers don't like surprises. Full disclosure of processes, risks, and inefficiencies is essential. The second here is last minute cleanups. Rushing to fix issues during due diligence raises concerns about governance and stability. It's also incredibly stressful. Overstating synergies. Buyers will validate claims. Overpromising on efficiency or scalability can backfire. Weak post-sales transaction plans. Buyers need a clear roadmap for leadership and operational continuity. Even if you are in a position where you have a lucrative buyout offer, if during due diligence major operational red flags emerge, such as lack of standardized processes, departments operate in silos, poor compliance documentation, regulatory exposure was unclear, or technology integration issues, the systems were outdated and incompatible, the deal will fall apart. You can spend 2 years or more fixing these issues before even considering going back to the market. So it's not worth losing all that time because of things you can address right now. This is why operational due diligence matters before the sale, not after buyers start asking questions. Let's end with a summary checklist. If your board decides to sell, operational preparedness is just as critical as financial performance. Buyers don't want a profitable company, they want a business that runs like a machine. Ensure processes are documented and scalable. Address operational inefficiencies before due diligence and maintain accurate and accessible data. In the next episode, I'll cover how to avoid integration failures and drive post merger success. I'll see you next time.